stories come together, and there are things God wants to do among us as a group. And I'd like to share some of those, and then we also have a sort of a special opportunity for you to give feedback with a survey. So we're going to carve out a few minutes for that as well. Some of you know I like to go jogging, and I live in the country, I guess you could say. And so one of the things you find when you jog in the country is dogs. Dogs that aren't behind fences, dogs that aren't on chains. And so often as I'm running along, I'll hear a bark. I wear these earbuds that they don't... Here's the thing, my poor neighbors, because I sometimes think of things while I'm running that are like, oh, that would be helpful to say. And I don't want to stop and like type it or trip trying to type it. So I hit the voice record, but my earbuds, wireless, they don't always pick up. So I have to say it twice for it to hear it. But it doesn't always work is kind of what I do. I'll yell that out. I have to say the first word twice because it won't hear it until it kind of has a delay. And so I can only imagine what they hear. I'm running down the street and they hear me saying, but, and just one. But anyways, the dog. So I'm listening to my earbuds, but they're the kind that you can also hear. And I hear a bark from a house, and it's a big bulldog, like English bulldog. And this thing is like 200 pounds. And I'm like, no problem. I'm not even going to be worried about that. And it's like 3 houses later, I'm listening to a song, and it's got this background beat that's kind of getting faster. It's like, and I was like, that sounds like, I kind of like it, but it kind of sounds like the sound of dogs' claws on pavement. I look behind me, and there is this big junkyard dog chasing me. So I learned that if you see a junkyard dog, be on guard, get the mace ready, whatever. Now, when I see a little yapper, love little dogs. We've had a little toy dog, but if it's a Chihuahua, I just turn around and get ready to punt it. I mean, it is no worries to me. No, I'm just kidding. But I will tell you the dog that I never worry about. When I see a German Shepherd bark, I don't even give it a turn of the head. You know why? German Shepherds have been bred to protect and follow orders. And if there's not a master alpha there telling that dog to chase me, it will not run out of its yard to chase me. It's universally been the case for me. Now, I'm sure there's an exception out there somewhere. But what I'm talking about is breeding. I'm talking about how breeders through the centuries have bred dogs in certain categories to do certain things. And the idea struck me, and I've never thought of this before. As I was praying about 2023, the thought struck me, God is breeding his nature in humanity. And bear with me for a little bit. Let me try and explain the image, because I think this relates to what God is calling us to be as a church this year. The idea is that God's glory, he wants to permeate everything. He wants his goodness, his majesty, his beauty and his power and his love to just be woven into the fabric of our creation, and that includes us as his creatures. And so what he does is he injects into human beings his nature, his being, his essence. And those people then live in such a way that is passed on spiritually. If they're parents, it is generationally blessed and bequeathed to the kids and the kids' down into the future. And if they're not parents, it doesn't matter. It's still part of the spiritual atmosphere of the way they live their lives. And I was thinking about this idea that God is actually changing the world by breeding his qualities in the hearts and the lives of people. And I started imagining, and I jotted down some things. Can you just imagine with me what it would be like to be swallowed up by all-encompassing love all the time? Well, what if you never had self-doubt? What if that was just a non-issue? What if every inclination of your heart was towards positivity and goodness, not negativity and pessimism? What if you were moved by kindness and compassion? What I mean is, what if you actually cared, like deeply cared, and you liked it? You liked how that made you feel. What if you weren't tripped up by pettiness What if you overcame temptation like a bona fide slayer every single time? What if every moment of your day was pregnant with meaning and significance? Every single moment of your waking hours. What if you experienced a power rush through your veins to stand up and step up with conviction and boldness, to speak truth and act for justice? What if you laughed and cried like you didn't even think was possible with other people this year? What if there were insane levels of joy in your life? What if you weren't controlled by fear? What if peace was your MO all the time? If the inclination of your heart was to hopeful expectancy. As I was imagining this kind of world, I was thinking about the qualities of Jesus that are being bred in us as people who are open and receptive to it. I'm imagining a world that is becoming more and more like that because LifeSpring exists in 2023. And the word I want to plant is hyphenated. It's 2 words combined, but it's Christ-centered. I believe God is calling us to be a Christ-centered church. And I want to explain what that means. It's not as esoteric or mystical as it might sound. To be Christ-centered means you focus on Jesus, his teachings and his ways, his words and his methods, his lifestyle. You look at both the red letters and then you look at the framework for how he lived his life. And here's our key text, Matthew 4:18-19. While walking by the Sea of Galilee, Jesus saw 2 brothers, Simon, who's called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Go to church and work at being a better person." Some of you are chuckling. Why are you laughing? Because there's something wrong with that. I changed the message, and some of you might not. You're like, I don't know what exactly, that all sounds right. He didn't say go to church and work at being a better person, did he? What he said was, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. And this is what we use the word disciple a lot, and maybe that's tripping some of you up, and I hope it's not. Basically, to be a disciple is to be an apprentice, to be a learner. It's somebody who follows in the footsteps of a master, someone who seeks to emulate and become like someone else. And so we here at LifeSpring are following Jesus. And so that's what a disciple is. It's a follower of Jesus who is being changed by him and who turns around and helps other people do the same, in the same way that Jesus did that with his followers. And so to hear and obey Jesus' teaching, that's what it means to be a follower. And for some of us, this is new. This world where you actually read an ancient book and invisibly God, who is a spirit, helps you understand its meaning in your day-to-day life, and you choose, instead of thinking about it only, you know, and it's not just theological, it's practical. You actually take a step. You follow his lead. You are moved by the prompts of Jesus to live your life differently than you would live it if you were just going about life on your own terms. That's what it means. And in the process, you become like him. You bear abundant fruit, the kind of things that I talked about earlier, the qualities of God that are being bred into humanity. That's what it means to follow Jesus. And you can't do it on your own. That's the thing that we try and do it on our own, but it doesn't work that way, because Jesus showed us he would go off and be alone, but not for long, because there he would encounter God and get infused with love that sent him back to people to make a difference. Jesus needed people, and so do we. And that's why we want to be a network, a family, a team, a huddle, a group of friends who work together in the mission of Jesus, following him together. And I'm picturing this year, here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing some of us get it for the first time in our lives, or rediscover what it was we once had, this first love, this love of Jesus, his ways, and willingness to follow him and go where he leads and let him change us. And you know what happens? Breakthroughs. The things that have been tripping us up for years, some of those are going to be past tense at the end of 2023 as we're walking with Jesus. Some of the deepest wounds that maybe you've carried from your past or fresh ones are going to be healed by the love of Jesus. And the confusion is going to be replaced by clarity. You're going to feel like, I know why I was made, and I like myself, the God who loves me, and he likes me. And so you're going to discover this year, and it's going to affect all of your life. That's the other thing. This following of Jesus, it's not one priority among many. And I hear and I understand saying, okay, Jesus is my first priority, God's my first priority, family second. That's actually not biblical. What Jesus taught is, I am your priority as played out in your family, in your work, in your school, with your friendships, in all of life. And what you're going to discover, I think collectively as a group, when we are a Christ-centered church, we discover that life works when we live it this way. Instead of the wonky wheel that's kind of out of alignment and we're just kind of not hitting on all cylinders, all of a sudden we're going to see with Christ at the center, everything works better. Following Jesus, then, is him changing us, but that all too often we stop there and we miss the fact that now we are activated to turn around and help others experience the same thing. And so this is the definition of disciple making. Entering into relationships to intentionally help people follow Jesus, be changed by Jesus, and join the mission of Jesus. This isn't like a secret strategy here at LifeSpring as a church. No, it's our public strategy to care, to love, to want to be involved in people's lives so that they can discover the God who is helping us. We're not perfect. We don't have it all together, by no means. And we're not ashamed to put that on display here. And you know me. I will stand up here and tell you, like, I fall short in many ways. That's why I need Jesus and why I love him so much. And so that's what we're doing. And Jesus gave us this commission to live like this. He said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples. It's really, as you go, make disciples. And all nations, actually you could read subcultures or people groups. All of us have many nations, groups of people that we encounter on a day-to-day basis. Even a given geographical area, like even a street you live on, is in a sense its own little micro community. And that is like a mini nation that God wants us to live out this good news among. And he says, baptizing them. You notice in the baptism, the video with all the different, you notice I'm in a number of them, and I'm kind of the default guy, me or John or somebody, if somebody doesn't have a person who's right there with them. But in most of the pictures and in most of the people who make these public proclamations of their faith in Jesus, it's somebody else who's right there doing the baptizing, living out these verses right here. Into the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. This is this new identity we have, that we are a much loved child of God the Father, and that we are filled with the Spirit of God to live out the servant lifestyle of Jesus. And then it continues, teaching them not to know everything I commanded you. What does it say? She's teaching them to do everything. Like we're seriously literal about following Jesus. When he says, forgive your enemies, we struggle to do it, but we don't say, I don't like that part, I'm going to rip that page out of the Bible. No, we're called to that. And surely I'm with you always to the very end of the age. When I was reflecting on this, I saw in 2023 us, and this could be you specifically, getting this in a new way, that the God who has all authority is present with us, that we are commissioned and authorized by that God to live out his life. The power and the authority of Jesus is meant to flow not just into you, but through you to others. So this is the year that we're going after it. What does it mean then to be a church that's all about this disciple making? It means we're not a building or a service. Church is not a building or a service. Say it with me. Church is not a building or a service. We don't go to church. We are the church. And so we believe that. We are networked in as a family of people following Jesus, living life on mission. Yeah, we gather here for a service, but this is just one little micro component of the bigger picture. Now, the common approach in America is that paid church staff use church programs to grow the church, share the gospel, relying on our curriculum, strategy, and hard work. And there's nothing that's like inherently wrong with that, but that's not Jesus' strategy. Jesus' approach was everyday followers of Jesus, like you and me, using intentional disciple-making relationships to reach the lost, form Christ-likeness and all. That's the breeding of God's goodness everywhere, and spread God's glory everywhere. And here's how. Relying on God's word and God's spirit that is activated by prayer and fasting. This is one of those new things for us this year. We're turning up the dial on our intentionality to seek God's power at work, not just our best efforts. And so you're going to be hearing and seeing this year new ways that you can engage, like the 30 days of prayer and fasting. It's in your bulletins. We'll be talking about that all month of January. You can jump into that, and we hope you do. What does it mean to be a disciple-making church? It means making disciples is the responsibility of every follower and not just the church staff. This is the picture shows the typical church has the church staff and the big one in the middle, and he's responsible for everybody. And I love you guys, and I wish I could be personally connected in every single one of your lives, but I can't. It'd be impossible. But what my job is to do is to pour deeply into a few, and those turn around and pour into others, and that this is a ripple effect of love and care and pastoring and transformation among us as a church. What does it mean to be a disciple-making church? It's not just one thing we do among many. It is the core mission of the church, and it is the best strategy to accomplish Christ's mission. His purpose is the restoration of all brokenness. Human beings have a broken relationship with God. Jesus wants to mend it. Despite our best efforts, we don't always get along the way we should. Jesus wants to mend that. And even just with the world order itself, like the very universe where we see God's glory on display in nature. And so our core mission is disciple making. And all of these different things we do are almost just like supports to that one end. And so we are seeking, and I believe God is creating a culture of this Jesus focus among us. And that's where the beliefs and habits and the narrative of the church are constantly repeated with alignment and intentionality to make it clear to almost everyone, including newcomers, that disciple making is what everyone does in this church. I would just love it if when someone says LifeSpring, they would say, oh, those people are really focused on Jesus. And it would be like a positive thing, maybe curious, maybe puzzling for some people. We may seem a little crazy, but nonetheless good. And they would see the way even we handle their antagonism with just grace and just steadiness. That's the culture that we will be people who are following Jesus, being changed by him, and helping other people do the same. Now, we want to ask for some of your input. And so if you could put the QR code on the screen. I'm going to ask you to take out a smartphone if you've got it. And you can also use Connect cards. They're in front of you if you don't have a smartphone, but you want to give input to these anonymous survey questions. And you could do this if you're brand new. You could do this if you're a long-term member. There's a set of 7 questions or so. And we're going to hit them real quick. You can complete it in your own time. But just these questions are just, what is one thing that you hope never changes about LifeSpring Community? Look, it is impossible not to change if you're growing. And we always want to be growing. But there's some things that we don't ever want to change, and we want to know what that is for you. What is one thing you wish was different about LifeSpring Community? I wish I could, again, sit down over a meal with you and hear your heart, but we're listening. And we want to take this in together as a staff and elders and pray over it. And then the next question is, LifeSpring has a lot going on. For you, are the number of events, activities, programs just right, too much at times, not enough, or something else? And so you can just select the choice, and if you want, give a comment. How significant a factor is not having children's ministry offered on Saturday nights? We were in a 3-month trial period without having our kids program on Saturday nights. We've been thinking about reintroducing aspects of it, and we're just looking for some feedback there. The next question is, if you regularly or sporadically attend Saturday service, would you attend Sunday if we didn't have a Saturday service? We're not planning to stop it, but we're considering all options about how we can be most strategic in stewarding our resources for God's kingdom. So we want to hear your feedback there. And then how do you feel about moving our Sunday first service from 9:30 to 9:15 a.m.? So that would move our service that you're in right now, and move it back to start 15 minutes earlier. We want your feedback on that because this will affect if we consider moving forward with that. And then how do you feel about the average length of the worship time? How do you feel about the average length of the sermons? I know you all want them to be longer. You don't need to answer that one. And then what could LifeSpring do better to help you be changed by Jesus and share that with others? And this is a really important one. And then there's a place for feedback or questions. Our teaching team is going to be meeting in the next couple weeks to seek the Lord, and we'd love to hear feedback about topics or scriptures that you would like to hear about in this next year. And so if God's putting something on your heart, we're listening because we believe he doesn't just speak through us, he speaks through you. That's why we're doing this. One of the things you'll note about LifeSpring as you finish this up and the band comes on up is I don't see us as like a top-down church that has a person who's like the face of the church. I mean, I'm up here a lot, so I'm a little more familiar, but we just see ourselves more like it's the difference between a starfish and a spider. If you cut a spider in half, it dies. If you cut a starfish in half, it multiplies. And we want to be a community of connected, in some ways decentralized leadership, where we've got incredible gifts, talents, and uniquenesses of different people here that are together an important part of this church. We're just glad you're here. Thank you, whether it's, again, your first time visiting, checking it out, watching online perhaps, or if you're a regular. And so why don't we go ahead and stand to our feet. It is fitting for us to end this looking back, looking forward service with a song of worship that recognizes and declares that our faith is in him. And we're looking to him. We're fixing our eyes on him. We've got a prayer team that we're going to invite to come over to be at the cross. And if you would like prayer, they're going to be up here. You're welcome to slip out of your seat. We realize you're heading into this year, and it might be with a limp. You might be bleeding inside, and or you might know someone who is. Or you're really excited, and you just want to fully consecrate everything to God. We'd love to pray with you about that if you don't have somebody you're able to pray with in person. And so let's seriously dig deep and give God the worship he deserves in this last song.